Good evening, dear students. I hope my voice is audible. Very good evening. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ರೆಡಿ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀನಿ ಕ್ಲಾಸನ್ನ ಕೇಳಕ್ಕೆ. ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನಾವು ಲೈಫ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಸ್ ಈ ಒಂದು ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ 2 ಸೆಷನ್ ಇಂದ ನಾವು ಈ ಒಂದು ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಲಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಸೊ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ದ ರಿಮೈನಿಂಗ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಸ್ ಸೊ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ನೆನ್ಪು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬಹುದಾ? ಸೊ what are all the important life processes that we studied in the last class? So the first we studied about the respiration and the type of respiration. Respiration and the type of respiration, that is aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and the human respiratory system. Mainly we are studying about the human respiratory system. Then the very important about the transportation. So we studied about the transportation, right? So how the important nutrients and the waste product that is transferred in the human body from one parts to the other parts. So and mainly we studied about the heart, right? So the circulation, how the blood circulation takes place in the heart. So these all are the important points that we studied in the last class ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇನೆ. ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ us move to the next part of this chapter, that is about the transportation in plants. Yes, what about the transportation in plants? Do they have any specialized organs for this transportation? No. In plants body also there is a transportation process, right? Because the water, minerals and the important nutrients, they transport from root to the shoot. Just imagine the root that is in the ground level and the shoot that is the upper part, so that is above the ground level. So it should be transferred to the leaves of the plants. So there should be a different system to transport these materials, right? Then and one more thing, that is about the food produced in the leaves, that should be transferred to the different parts of the plants. For example, roots and the stems and the other parts, they store the food materials. So for this transportation, plants also need the, so they'll also perform the transportation to transport these materials. Yes, plants, they do not have the special organs for this, but they have the special tissues. So here in plants, xylem tissue, I hope you know about this tissue. Xylem tissue moves water and minerals obtained. The xylem tissue that is meant for the transportation of the water and the minerals, and the phloem that transports the products of photosynthesis from the leaves, where they are synthesized to other parts of the plant. So here, as I explained, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಫುಡ್ ಸಿಂಥಸಿಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾಗತ್ತೆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ದಟ್ ಟೇಕ್ಸ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಲೀವ್ಸ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಫುಡ್ ಮಟೀರಿಯಲ್ಸ್ ಏನಾಗಬೇಕು, ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಬಾಡೀಸ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸಿಗೆ ಏನಾಗಬೇಕು, ಅದು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ದ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪಿಂಗ್ in this process, that is called as the phloem tissue. Okay, here we are studying in detail about the xylem and the phloem tissue. So let us learn the topic transportation of water, very important topic. How the transportation of water that takes place in the plant body. ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಹೇಗಾಗತ್ತೆ, ರೂಟ್ ಇಂದ ಏನಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ವಾಟರ್ ಮಿನರಲ್ಸ್ ರೂಟ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಶೂಟ್ಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ there should be some different types of cells, they should be interconnected alva. In xylem tissue, Vessels and tracheids of the roots, stem, and leaves are interconnected to form a continuous system of water conducting channels reaching all the parts of the plant. See here, the xylem tissue, which has the vessels and the tracheids, the specialized cells of the xylem tissue. Just imagine this is the xylem vessels and the tracheids. So just imagine that this is present in the roots of the plant, these tracheids. Then again in shoot also these xylem tracheids and vessels arranged, and in the shoot system also the xylem tracheids and vessels, xylem tissue is arranged like this. So it forms a continuous channel ಟು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ದ ವಾಟರ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಒಂದು ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಚಾನೆಲ್ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ರೂಟಲ್ಲಿ, ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಬ್ರಾಂಚಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ದ ಇಂಟರ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಯಸ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ, ಇಂಟರ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಇನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದ ರೂಟ್, ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದ ಬ್ರಾಂಚಸ್, ಇಂಟರ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಆಫ್ water conducting channels, so that helps to reach the water from root to the shoot. Interconnected channels ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಆಯ್ತು. But how the water present in the soil that entered to the this xylem vessels and tracheids. See here, ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು ನೋಡಿ, ರೂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ, ಈ ತರ xylem vessels ಮತ್ತೆ ಟ್ರೆಕಿಡ್ಸ್ ಅರೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ರೂಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯು ಫೈಂಡ್ ದ xylem tracheids and vessels? ವಾಟರ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಇಂದ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ ಆಗಿ ರೂಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಈ ಟ್ರೆಕಿಡ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ವೆಸಲ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಟ್ರೆಕಿಡ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವೆಸಲ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ರೂಟ್. ದೆನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ, ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನೋಡಿ ಯಾವ ತರ ಈ ಒಂದು xylem ಟಿಶ್ಯೂಸ್ ಇದೆ. ದೆನ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಇದೇ ರೀತಿ xylem ಟಿಶ್ಯೂಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಚಾನೆಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ water conducting channel, so that you can see in this plant. So this transport the water from root to the other parts of the plant, that is leaves. Then but the question is how the water that is present in the soil that enter to the xylem tracheids and the vessels, xylem tissues ಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ there is some process that takes place in that root. At the roots, cells in contact with the soil actively take up the ions. ನೋಡಿ roots ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, this is the root. Okay. So these water molecules and ions, minerals that is present inside the soil, so around the root. So here the cells in contact with the soil, so here some cells are, they are contacted with the soil, which take up the ions, so which take up the some ions into the root cells, which forms the ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಯಾನ್ಸ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೆಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಸೆಲ್ ಅಯಾನ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಇಸ್ ಮೋರ್. ಸೊ ವಿಚ್ ಕಾಸ್ ದ water to move from outside to the inside to avoid this concentration difference, to eliminate this difference. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಟು ದ ರೂಟ್ ಮೂವ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಟು ಎಲಿಮಿನೇಟ್ ದ difference, this concentration difference. This means that there is a steady movement of water into the xylem, creating the column of water that is steadily pushed upwards. See here, illenaitu. So this is the root, which actively take up the ions and create the concentration difference. To eliminate this concentration difference, water that enter into the root cells and which reach the xylem tissues. So when it reach the xylem tissues, it is continuously pushing upwards to the stem and the ಬ್ರಾಂಚಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದ್ಸಲ ವಾಟರ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಆಯಿತು ಅಂದರೆ ಇದೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಯಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಈ ವಾಟರ್ ಚಾನಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಪುಷ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರತ್ತೆ. ದ ವಾಟರ್ ಈಸ್ ಪುಷಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದಿಸ್ channel, water channel. This means there is a steady movement of water into the root of xylem. ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗತ್ತೆ, ವಾಟರ್ ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಆಗತ್ತೆ, then it moves in the xylem tissue. ಸೊ xylem tissue ಒಳಗೆ ಅಪ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಯಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಕಾಲಮ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ದಟ್ ಸ್ಟೀಡಿಲಿ ಪುಷ್ಡ್ ಅಪ್ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಹೌ ದ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಟೇಕ್ಸ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ in the xylem tissue. So, in some other cases, the plant has an adequate supply of water. The water which is lost to the stomata is replaced by water from the xylem vessels in the leaf. See here, so when there is an adequate supply of water, so there is a more water, then the loss of water takes place through the stomata. Water loss ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಕಾದಷ್ಟು ನೀರಿದೆ ಅಂದಾಗ ಆ ವಾಟರ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸ್ಟೊಮ್ಯಾಟೊ ಥ್ರೂ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಲಾಸ್ water that is replaced by again the xylem vessels in the leaf. ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಆ ವಾಟರ್ ಕೂಡ ರೀಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್, ದ ಲಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನೌನ್ ಆಸ್ ದ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಲಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದ ಸ್ಟೊಮ್ಯಾಟಾ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನೌನ್ ಆಸ್ ದ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್. See here, evaporation of water molecules from the cells of a leaf creates a suction which pulls the water from the xylem cells of the root. See here, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, see here, the loss of water takes place through the leaves of the plant when the water is sufficient. So this lost water that is gained by roots, cells of the roots, that is gained by cells of the roots, which create the suction pull. So which create the transpiration pull to suck the suction pull means the water that is absorbed continuously by the roots. So this transpiration, so that is creating the transpiration pull. Here the water loss takes place through the leaves and which creates the suction which pulls the water from the xylem cells from the roots. So this is how the absorption of or the movement of water that takes place in the plant. Okay, so these two important topics, very important topics, how the water transported in the xylem vessels. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, explain the transportation of the water in the xylem vessels. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಸಲ ರಿಪೀಟೆಡ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೇಳಿರುವಂತಹ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಇದು. ಓಕೆ, then next is about the transportation of food and other substances. So as you know, leaves, they produce the food in the presence of sunlight by the process called as the photosynthesis. But so that should be transported, that should be stored in the different parts of body. Some plants, they store in roots, stem and seeds and other parts of the plant. But for this transportation of food, the phloem is required, right? Transport of the soluble products of photosynthesis is called translocation and it occurs in the part of the vascular tissue known as phloem. Transport of soluble products of the photosynthesis. So what is translocation? That is the 1 mark question. What is translocation? Transport of soluble products of the photosynthesis is called translocation. Then, besides the products of photosynthesis, the phloem transports the amino acids and other substances also. So, some amino acids and other substances that is also transported by the phloem cells. So this is the phloem tissue. It contains the sieve element and these are the companion cells and the sieve cells, and this is the sieve, sieve cells and the sieve tube. So this is the sieve tube. This is the sieve tube element. So totally it constitute the, so this is the phloem tissue where the transportation of food takes place. Then how the transportation of food takes place? Yes, we know the transportation of food takes place, but how materials like sucrose is transferred into phloem tissue using energy from the ATP. So this increases the osmotic pressure of the tissue, causing water move into it. This pressure moves the material in the phloem to the tissues which have the less pressure. This allows the phloem to move the material according to the plant's needs. See here, materials like sucrose is transferred. Just imagine sucrose is produced by using the energy. Just imagine this is the phloem tissue. Materials like sucrose is transferred. Sucrose is the materials that is produced in the process of photosynthesis. Just imagine this is the sucrose. Sucrose is transported into the phloem tissue by using the energy from the ATP. Okay, so ATP is used to transport the sucrose like substances into the phloem. So this increases the osmotic pressure of the tissue, causing the water to move into it. So here the water that enter into the phloem tissue, so that increases the osmotic pressure inside the phloem tissue. So the water that enters inside the phloem tissue, that is because of the that creates the osmotic pressure inside the tissue. This pressure moves the material in the phloem to the tissues which has the less pressure. To in the first step, by using the ATP, sucrose like materials transported inside the phloem tissue. So here this causes the movement of water to the higher pressure area. So to avoid the concentration difference, the water that enter into the phloem tissue, water entry agide phloem tissues ಒಳಗಡೆ. So this increases the osmotic pressure. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ water ತುಂಬಾ ಇದೆ. So the osmotic pressure is more inside the phloem tissue. So this pressure that cause the movement of this material from higher pressure to the lower pressure area where there is a requirement of the food, for example developing parts of the plant and where there is a need. So according to the plant's need, this food is transported, that sucrose is transported to the different parts based on the pressure. So it moves to the high pressure to the low pressure area. So this is how the transport of the transport of the sucrose or the photosynthesis product takes place. Very, very important. Here, what is the difference you find between the water transportation and the food transportation? So, transportation in xylem and transportation in phloem. What is the difference you find? So the transportation of water that takes place by using the simple physical forces by diffusion. Simple physical forces are used to transport the water in the xylem, but ATP, the energy that is released from the ATP is used to transport the food in the phloem. So and one more difference is the transportation of water that is the unidirectional. Transportation of water that is the unidirectional, and the transportation of food that is the multidirectional. So it takes place in all the direction. So unidirectional means, so that is from roots to the leaves. Any other difference that you find the transportation of water and the transportation of food? Any other difference that you can write? Okay. So these are the some difference between the xylem transportation in the xylem and the phloem. So the last important life process, that is the excretion. What is excretion? And how the excretion that takes place in the human beings and how it takes place in the plants, that we have to study. So that's it. So that completes this chapter. Okay. Yes. Excretion. So excretion means that is the removal of the waste products or the waste products which is produced from the metabolic activities. So that is, if it is stored, that is very harmful for our body. So the biological process involved in the removal of the harmful metabolic waste from the body is called as the excretion. Yes, that is the definition of the excretion. Then the different organisms use varied strategies to do this. Many unicellular organisms remove this waste from the simple diffusion. So they remove the some waste through the diffusion process. So through the surface of their body into the surrounding water. So we are studying about the excretion in human beings. So the waste products, the carbon dioxide that is removed by the removed through the lungs, and the waste products that is produced in the digestive system that is removed through the anus. And now we are studying about the excretion. So that the nitrogenous waste excretion, that is the nitrogenous waste that is present inside the blood. So that we are studying how the body that removes the nitrogenous waste that is present in the body. Here, excretion in human beings. So the excretion in human beings that takes place by the special organs that is called as the excretory system, that includes the kidney, right? So the excretory system. So human excretory system that includes the pair of kidneys, pair of ureter and urinary bladder and urethra. See here. So this is the diagram of human excretory system. So the human excretory system that includes the pair of kidneys. Here you can see the pair of bean-shaped kidneys. So these are the pair of bean-shaped kidneys and pair of ureters. So this is the right kidney and this is the left kidney. And this is the ureter which carries the urine to the urinary bladder. The urine that is produced inside the kidney and that is carried by the tube-like structure that is called as ureter. Can find right ureter and the left ureter. Then the urine produced that is stored in the structure that is called as urinary bladder, and urinary bladder, the urine that is excreted, that is removed through the urethra. Okay, so these are the important parts of the human excretory system: kidney, then ureter, urinary bladder, and the urethra. Then kidneys are located in the abdomen one on either side of the backbone. So that is the location of the kidney. Urine produced in the kidneys passes through the ureters into the urinary bladder, where it is stored until it is released to the urethra. So the function of ureter that carries the urine or the nitrogenous waste produced inside the kidney, and that is carried by the ureter and stored in the urinary bladder. Then urine produced in the kidneys passes through the ureters into the urinary bladder, where it is stored until it is released through the urethra. But the thing is how the kidneys are able to produce the urine, how they are able to collect the nitrogenous waste and removed in the form of urine. Yes, here the kidneys, they have structural and the functional unit that is called as the nephrons. Okay, the purpose of making urine is to filter out the waste products from the blood. Just as carbon dioxide is removed from the blood in the lungs, nitrogenous waste such as urea and the uric acid are removed from the blood in the kidneys. So this nitrogenous waste mainly include the urea and the uric acid. Mainly it includes the urea and the uric acid. So that should be removed from the blood. That is the important point. So here each kidneys, they have structural and the functional unit that is called as the nephron. Millions of nephrons are present within the kidney. So nephron, how the urine is produced inside the kidney, how this kidney is going to function to produce the urine. Here the nephrons, which are called as structural and the functional unit of kidney. So why they are called as the structural and functional unit of the kidney? Because they filter inside the kidney. You know that filtration of the blood takes place, they remove the nitrogenous waste. So these nephrons, they receives the blood from the arteriole. See here, so this is the arteriole, and there is a cup like bowl like structure that is called as the glomerulus. So this cup like structure that is called as glomerulus. So this is the first part of the nephron which receives the blood from the arteriole. Okay, so the filtration of blood takes place in this glomerulus. So this Bowman here, so this cup like structure that is called as the Bowman's capsule, and the blood vessels which reaches the where the filtration of the blood takes place in the Bowman's capsule, that is together called as the glomerulus. Okay, this cup like structure that is called as the Bowman's capsule, and the glomerulus, that is the structure where it contains the Bowman's capsule as well as this blood vessels. The filtration of blood vessels takes place in the Bowman's capsule. Means that some waste products, some extra products, urea, uric acid, so that moves in the tubular part of the nephron. So this is the tubular part of the nephron as a filtrate, and the remaining blood that is transported back to the heart, that is through the efferent arteriole. Then so this filtrate, so this is the tubular part of the nephron. So this filtrate that contain the filtrate that contain the excess water, not only nitrogenous waste and water, then glucose, amino acid, etc. Okay, so these the necessary materials, so which are absorbed in the tubular part of the nephron. Okay, so this water is essential and glucose, amino acids, that is essential, so that is absorbed in the tubular part of the nephron, which is move back to the our body. And at last only the nitrogenous waste and some other products which is not necessary, the waste products, that is moved to the collecting duct. So this is called as the collecting duct, and this collecting duct that is connected to the ureter. So this is how the production of urine takes place in the kidney. Okay, so kidneys, they contain the structural and the functional unit that is called as the nephron. These nephrons, they filter the blood, they remove the nitrogenous waste and pour into the collecting duct, and the collecting duct that is connected to the ureter. Here the first part, that is the glomerulus, where the filtration of blood takes place, and the cup-like structure that is called as Bowman's capsule, and the afferent arteriole which carries the blood, and the filtration takes place. The filtrate that moves in the tubular part of the nephron. This is the tubular part of the nephron, and where the absorption of the essential materials which is present in the filtrate takes place. Then the nitrogenous waste and the waste product that is connected in the collecting duct. Okay, so this is the process of the formation of the urine. See here. So filtration of the blood takes place, and the filtrate that moves in the tubular part of the nephron, and absorption of some materials which is essential, glucose, amino acids. So the absorption also takes place in the tubular part of the nephron. Okay. See here, each kidney has large numbers of filtration units called as nephrons packed close together. Each nephron has a cup-like structure called Bowman's capsule. So that cup-like structure that is called as the Bowman's capsule, containing bundle of capillaries called as glomerulus. The capillaries which carry the blood to the Bowman's capsule, that is called as together called as the glomerulus. What is glomerulus and what is Bowman's capsule, that you have to differentiate. The Bowman's capsule leads to a tubular structure which join into the collecting duct. So the tubular part of the nephron that connected to the collecting duct. The renal artery brings the nitrogenous waste like ammonia, urea, excess of water, salts into the nephron. So the renal artery that carries the blood to the kidney. Okay. So in that blood there is it contain the ammonia, urea and the excess of water. ಈ blood ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಮೋನಿಯಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, excess of water ಇರುತ್ತೆ, and the some waste materials ಇರುತ್ತೆ. In filter, the nitrogenous waste, water and salts which passes through the tubular part of the nephron. ಸೊ ಆ ಟ್ಯುಬ್ಯುಲರ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ದ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ದೆನ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದ ಯೂರಿಟರ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ದ ಯೂರಿನರಿ ಬ್ಲಾಡರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸೆಂಟ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದ ಯುರಿಥ್ರಾ ಆಸ್ ದ ಯೂರಿನ್. ಬಟ್ ಸಮ್ ಯೂಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಲೈಕ್ ಅಮೈನೋ ಆಸಿಡ್ಸ್, ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಆರ್ ರೀಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ ಬೈ ದ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಲರೀಸ್. ಸೊ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಲರೀಸ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ರೀಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅರೌಂಡ್ ದ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ goes into a renal vein. So this is how the urine is produced. Explain the structure and function of the nephron anta question anna keltare. Explain the structure and function of the nephron. So the very important thing that is about the how the nephron that is going to produce the nitrogenous waste. So first step alli enagutte andre Bowman's capsule containing the bundles of capillaries called as the glomerulus. So this, there is a tubular part which is connecting, join the collecting duct, that is called as the tubular part. So ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ blood. So here you can see the diagram. Renal artery. Renal artery ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, so this is the renal artery. So which brings the blood to the kidney. ನೋಡಿ ಕಿಡ್ನಿಗೆ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಕನೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, renal arteryಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, which contain the some urea and ammonia and excess water, salts, etc. are present. So this blood moves to the kidney, so especially to the nephrons. So nephrons ಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. Nephrons ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೌಮನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಸೂಲ್ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, and there is a filtration of blood takes place and which moves in the tubular part. Tubular part ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, so the materials which are necessary, that is absorb, for example water, glucose, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ absorb ಆಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. Then the urea and the nitrogenous waste and some other products that reach the collecting duct, and collecting duct that opens into the ureter. Ureter ಗೆ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ureter through ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, urethra, and through the urinary bladder, then urethra, it is removed from our body. So ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. And the filtrated blood that is back to the heart through the renal vein. So renal vein through ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ blood ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, that is move to the move back to the heart. So this is how the excretion takes place in the human beings. Okay, so how the urine is produced and how the excretion takes place in the human beings. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ important ಆಗಿ ಕೇಳುವಂತದ್ದು, explain the structure and function of nephron. Structure and function of nephron. Okay, so that is the very important point. So this is about the excretion in the human beings. Then the very important thing, that is about the excretion in plants. Yes, human beings, they have well developed excretory system. So which includes the kidneys, ureter and urethra, urinary bladder. So these all parts are present. That is the well developed excretory system. But what about the plants? Do they excrete the waste materials? Yes, plants also excrete the waste materials. But how? How the plants are able to excrete the materials? So in plants, the gaseous waste products produced during the respiration, carbon dioxide and the photosynthesis, oxygen are removed through the stomata. Okay, there is no specialized organs in the plants. Plants ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದು ಸ್ಪೆಷಲೈಸ್ಡ್ ಆರ್ಗನ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಸಮ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪಿಂಗ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ರಿಮೂವಲ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ಸ್. ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ರಿಮೂವ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Here mainly the gaseous products during the respiration, which is produced during the respiration, that is the carbon dioxide. So plants alli carbon dioxide produce ಆಗುತ್ತೆ respiration ಅಲ್ಲಿ, and the oxygen, that is the waste product in the photosynthesis. So ಈ ಎರಡು ಕೇಸಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಈ ಆಕ್ಸಿಜನ್ and carbon dioxide ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, that is removed through the stomata. Then excess of water is removed through the stomata. This process is called as the transpiration. So if the plant body which contain the more water than usual, then it is also removed through the stomata. So the stomata also acting as the important organs to remove the waste product in the plant body. Then some waste products stored in the leaves and removed when the leaves are dry and fall off. So you know that some leaves, they store the waste products. When these leaves fall off, the waste products also removed. Through the leaves, they remove the waste products. Then some waste products store in vacuoles. So they store the waste products in vacuoles also. Other waste products are stored as resins in the and gums, especially in the old xylem. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ರೇಸಿನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಗಮ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ರೇಸಿನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಗಮ್ಸ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಓಲ್ಡ್ xylem ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಿರುತ್ತೆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟು. Plants also excrete some waste substances into the soil around them. So these plants, they also excrete some substances to the soil through the diffusion process, through the simple process. So this is how the excretion that takes place in the plants. So very simple, there is no organ systems are involved. ಯಾವುದು organ system ಏನಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. But so the plants, they excrete the materials in a different way. ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ವೇದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೀಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. So the first, the gaseous exchange, the waste products like carbon dioxide and oxygen, that is removed through the stomata, and the water, excess water is also removed by the stomata, and they store the some waste material in leaves, and when the leaves fall off, the waste material also removed. Then they store the waste materials in vacuoles, and also other waste products are stored in resins and gums, especially in the old xylem. Okay, so in the old xylem that is stored, and plants also excrete some waste substances into the soil around them. So this is how the excretion that takes place in the plants. So I hope this topic is clear. So if you have any doubts, you can ask. Enadru doubt idre kelbodu. So this is the last topic in this chapter, excretion in plants. That is the last topic in the life processes chapter. Okay, so e chapter alli hagadre, so what are all the points we have studied in the ಲೈಫ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಸ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್. ಸೊ ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ವಿ ಸ್ಟಡಿಡ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ definition of life processes, and we started with the ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್, ನಿಮಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಏನೇನನ್ನ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದಟ್ photosynthesis, autotrophic nutrition, in that photosynthesis equation and the steps involved in that, and the equation. So these all points are very important. And about this stomata diagram. So these all are very, very important for your exam. Then second thing about the nutrition in amoeba, then nutrition in human beings. Very, very important topic, nutrition in human beings anta ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. So that is also very important topic. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ತರ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, explain the digestion in mouth, digestion in our mouth, and explain the digestion in the stomach. ಸ್ಟಮಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಡೈಜೆಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಸೆಪರೇಟ್ ಆಗು ಕೂಡ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಡೈಜೆಷನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಇಂಟೆಸ್ಟೈನ್, ಕೆಲವೊಂದ್ಸಲ ಮೌತ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಟಮಕ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದ್ಸಲ ಸ್ಟಮಕ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಂಟೆಸ್ಟೈನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದ್ಸಲ ಇಂಟೆಸ್ಟೈನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. 3 ಮಾರ್ಕಿಗೆ 3 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್. ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ದ ಡೈಜೆಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಟೆಸ್ಟೈನ್, ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಲ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂತ ಕ್ವಶನ್. ಈ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೀವು ಮಿಸ್ ಮಾಡದೆ ಓದ್ಬೇಕು. ದೆನ್ ದ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ respiration alva. So respiration ಅಲ್ಲಿ the difference between the aerobic and the anaerobic respiration. ಸೊ ಆ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಓದ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಅದನ್ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಲ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ರೈಟ್ ದ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದ ಏರೋಬಿಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಎನರೋಬಿಕ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಆ ಮೂರು ಪಾತ್ವೇ ಅನ್ನ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಏರೋಬಿಕ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅನರೋಬಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ. ದೆನ್ ದ ರೆಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ರೆಸ್ಪಿರೇಟರಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇನ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ ರೆಸ್ಪಿರೇಟರಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಕೇಳಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಸಮ್ ಗಿವ್ ರೀಸನ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಆ ಒಂದು ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ರೆಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್, ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಆಫ್ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್, ತುಂಬಾ ಸಲ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಕ್ವಶನ್. ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಡಬಲ್ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್, explain the double circulation in human beings. And some give reason questions. For example, aves and mammals, they have four chamber heart, that is very essential for these organisms alva. So why that is very important? Give reason question alli keltare adanna. Because they have to maintain the constant body temperature, and for that they need more energy alva. So ಆ ಒಂದು ಇದನ್ನ give reason question ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. And the ventricles have the thick walls than the atria. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ give reason question ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ಡಬಲ್ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಡಬಲ್ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ದೆನ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್, ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಝೈಲಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಫ್ಲೋಯಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ದ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಇನ್ xylem, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ದ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಇನ್ ಫ್ಲೋಯಮ್. ಸೊ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ ರಿಪೀಟೆಡ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೀಷನ್. ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೀಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ದ how plants excrete the waste products in a different ways. ಸೊ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ವೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೀಷನ್ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೀಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೀಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂರಿನ್ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಆಗತ್ತೆ, ನೆಫ್ರಾನ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ನೆಫ್ರಾನ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ನಾನು ಇವಾಗ ಏನೇನು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇನಲ್ವಾ, ಆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೀವು ರಿಪೀಟೆಡ್ ಆಗಿ ಓದಿ, ನೀವು ಓಲ್ಡ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಲ ಅದು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಆನ್ ದೀಸ್ ಆಲ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ again we have 10 more minutes. So let's solve some important questions. So from this chapter, okay, ಈ ಒಂದು ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವಂತ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ ನೋಡಿ. In plants, the major function of xylem in the transportation is xylem, that is meant for water transportation, right? Option is the correct answer. Food, amino acid and oxygen. So food and the amino acid, that is through the phloem, and the oxygen, that is transported through the stomata. Okay. Second question. The blood vessels that carry blood from all the parts of the human body to the heart. So here arteries, capillaries, pulmonary arteries and the veins. So you know that some blood vessels, they carry the blood from the heart to the other organs, that is called as the arteries. Arteries carry the blood from the heart to the different parts, that is called as the arteries. And here the blood vessels, here pulmonary arteries and the arteries, that is the wrong answer. So because arteries, they carry the blood to the different parts of the body from the heart. The blood vessels that carry blood from all the parts of the body, human body, to the heart. ಸೊ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಬರುವಂಥದ್ದು, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ದ ವೇನ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, Plants can get rid of excess of water by this process. Yes, just now we studied this topic ಅಲ್ವಾ ಈಗ just ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಈ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. Plants can get rid of excess of water by this process. Yes, transpiration, photosynthesis, respiration and translocation. So the correct answer is yes. I hope you know the correct answer. That is the transpiration. Then the site of complete digestion of carbohydrates, proteins and fats. So where the complete digestion of carbohydrates, fats and proteins takes place: stomach, large intestine, small intestine and the liver. Yes, which place? Yes, the correct answer is small intestine. Then, under what condition lactic acid is produced in muscle cells? When there is a lack of oxygen, when there is a less oxygen availability is less, then the muscle cells they perform the anaerobic respiration and produce the lactic acid. Then eating chapati by chewing it very slowly tastes sweeter. Why? So I explained this question while teaching, because the saliva that present in our mouth that break down the starch present in the chapati into sugar, that so the food tastes sweeter. Then the rate of breathing in aquatic organisms is much faster than that seen in the terrestrial organisms. So give reason question. Because the availability of the oxygen that is less compared to the terrestrial organism, in the dissolved oxygen is very less. So they breathe very fast compared to the terrestrial organism. So that is the give reason question. Yes, this is the answer for this question. Write any two difference between aerobic and the anaerobic respiration. One of the important question, 2 mark question. Write any two difference between aerobic and anaerobic. Can define the what is aerobic respiration, what is anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, so which produces the more energy compared to the anaerobic, which anaerobic that produces the less energy, and the products also you can write. Yes, so this is the difference between the aerobic and the anaerobic respiration. Yes. So these all are the some important questions. Yes, this is see the question. So I'm explaining this question because so what are all the important points that you have studied in this chapter? So just you have to recall that points. Compare the functions of xylem tissue with that of the phloem. Explain the process of exchange of gases that takes place through the stomata in the plant. So this is also one of the important question. Yes, dear students, I hope this session is very useful for you people. Yes, if you have any doubts, just comment in the chat box. Thank you. We'll continue in the next class.